Welcome to Prakash Academy Virtual Classroom. I am so glad you're joining me today. Take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's get ready to learn together. In this explainer, we're diving right into that fascinating space where everyday life meets science. We're going to take a look at a very simple everyday event and uncover the hidden chemistry happening right in front of our eyes, literally right inside your morning cup of milk.
Okay, let's dive right into our first topic, the milkman's baking soda secret, which is a real everyday mystery.
Picture a milkman, early in the morning. The sun is just starting to peek over the horizon, and he's got these massive jugs of completely fresh milk that he needs to deliver to tons of homes. It's a really long journey. But right before he hits the road, he does something kind of surprising. He takes a tiny pinch of baking soda and drops it directly into that fresh milk. Now, why on earth add baking soda to fresh milk? Usually we just keep baking soda in the kitchen for baking cakes or making soft breads. It's definitely not something you think about drinking in your morning glass. So what exactly is the invisible science happening inside that large milk jug? Why does the milkman need that white powder?
To figure this out, we need to understand how we're shifting the pH balance and look at milk's natural state. First, we have to look at fresh milk in its absolute pure state, right before the milkman adds anything to it at all. Fresh milk naturally sits at a pH level of 6. If you remember from basic chemistry, the pH scale just measures how acidic or basic a liquid is. Pure water is right in the dead center at a perfectly neutral 7. So a pH of 6 means that fresh milk is naturally just a little bit acidic. It's not sharply sour like a lemon or anything like that, but it does have this very slight, invisible acidity built right in from the start.
Now, what's really interesting here is looking at the exact opposite of that natural acid. In chemistry, we call that alkaline. An alkaline substance can completely balance out or neutralize an acid. It's kind of like throwing cold water on a hot fire. And here is where the milkman's secret comes in. Baking soda is highly alkaline. By dropping in just that tiny little pinch, the milkman is totally changing the chemical environment inside that jug. He's actively using an alkaline powder to fight the natural acid.
You can think of this as a chemical shift. On one hand, we have our normal, fresh milk sitting perfectly at its natural, slightly acidic level. But the second the milkman adds his secret trick, the whole game changes. The milk isn't acidic anymore. It has been deliberately and carefully shifted to become slightly alkaline. The chemical balance has been tilted in the exact opposite direction.
So let's move on to fighting the sour acid and how this trick actually stops the milk from going bad.
Why go through all this trouble? Why deliberately mess with the chemical balance of perfectly fresh milk? Well, it's because the milkman is basically fighting a war against a chemical called lactic acid. As milk sits out, especially in the warmth of the early morning, this lactic acid naturally starts to form and multiply. And as more and more of it builds up, it makes the milk turn sour very easily. We all know that terrible sour smell and taste. Once it hits that point, the milkman absolutely cannot sell it. The lactic acid would literally destroy his fresh product before he even makes it to your front door. So the crucial point is how this protects the milk. First off, the baking soda makes the milk slightly alkaline. Second, that new alkaline state acts exactly like a chemical shield. It actively fights back against the sour lactic acid as it tries to form into warmth. And finally, because of this invisible, ongoing battle, the milk stays fresh for the entire journey. The milkman's product survives the whole morning route without spoiling. It's a really simple but genius solution. That brings us to our final piece of the puzzle, the curd neutralization delay, which is really an invisible chemical battle. We know exactly how the milk stays fresh now, but this clever little trick creates a pretty unusual secondary effect. Say you take this special alkaline milk into your kitchen, and you actually want to change it. Let's say you want to turn it into curd. Well, you're going to notice that it takes a much longer time to set than normal untouched milk. Why do you think this delay happens? Think back to that invisible shield the milkman put in place earlier that morning. Let's see how this builds up step by step. Setting milk into thick, delicious curd actually requires a whole lot of lactic acid. But remember, the milkman added that alkaline shield. So in step 1, the lactic acid begins to form for the curdling process, just like it normally would. But it can't just magically turn the milk into curd right away. In step 2, this newly formed acid actually has to fight the baking soda. It has to completely defeat and neutralize the alkali first. The acid is working overtime just to break down that shield. Only after that battle is completely won, in step 3, does the milk finally set into curd. This is literally the fundamental rule of this entire chemical process. The lactic acid must neutralize the alkali first.
The curd absolutely cannot form, and the milk can't change its texture until every bit of that baking soda is totally canceled out by the acid. That invisible battle of neutralization is exactly why your curd takes so much longer to set when you use the Milkman's protected milk. You're basically waiting for a tiny chemical war to finish up right there in your kitchen bowl.
From a simple jug of milk to a hidden battle of acids and alkalis, we've seen how a tiny pinch of powder can completely rewrite the chemistry in your cup. It keeps the milk fresh for that long journey, and it fights off the curdling process right in your kitchen. It really makes you wonder, what other everyday tricks hide invisible chemical reactions just waiting to be discovered? Thank you so much for learning with me today in the Prakash Academy virtual classroom. Keep your eyes open and keep looking for the science hidden all around you.